Good morning and welcome to the 2025 Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor's Small Business Academy. This is our 9 a.m. session today on Thursday, May 8th. How to prepare for your next buyer meeting. And I would like to introduce now Ina Willemsens with the Wisconsin Procurement Institute to kick off our next panel discussion.
Thank you, Michael. We just finished a session on certifications. Great session. We had the City of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, State of Wisconsin, WisDOT, and the SBA joining us. Now we're going to talk about how to meet with a buyer, how to maximize your effectiveness, how to prepare, and how to execute so that the outcome is success in a contract. Could we have our speakers join? Maybe. And we have Suzanne, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just saw you a couple days ago. That was unexpected and that was wonderful. So we have the benefit of attending a reception supporting the Fusion Initiative here in Wisconsin. And it was a great day. It's just an absolutely great day. So, but now we're going to talk about how to maximize the small businesses' opportunities as they have the opportunity to meet with a buyer, either government or a large corporation, how to tell their story and how to be listened to and just how to make better use of the opportunity, maximize the success. So I'm going to ask everyone to give an introduction of themselves, their company, what their company's working on, that type of thing, so we learn more about you to start. Jose, I'll have you start.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jose Galvan, Supply Development Specialist here at the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. We are a municipal organization. As our name says, we deal with all things water that's been used, flood mitigation. We are considered utility, located here downtown Milwaukee. Our service area is Milwaukee County and the 7-county region as well. Lots of it. We have over 1.5 million people that we provide services to. And we primarily, because as a public utility, all of our procurement over $20,000 is publicly posted for either RFP or bids. Anything less than $20,000 is a quote. Looking forward to talk to everybody and getting to know you.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Suzanne Ferris. I'm a market strategist in our engineering team at HGA Architects and Engineers. We're a large interdisciplinary research-driven firm with 13 offices from coast to coast, focused in a number of different sectors with a key mission of using our design background to bring key insights to help elevate design for all of our clients in their unique environments. Some of the projects you may know here in this region, we're doing a lot of work with a number of different healthcare systems, Advocate Aurora, just started working with UW Health, Freightert, the medical campus, Aspirus, for those of you a little bit more rural, as well as with the DFD, the state of Wisconsin, Milwaukee County. We're a large firm, so we have done a lot of work, at least a little work for a lot of different clients. And I'm excited to get to know the panel and have this discussion today.
Thank you. Jack?
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Jack Laufenberg. I'm with the Wisconsin Procurement Institute. So as Ina talked about in our last session, we are a nonprofit organization. We offer no-cost technical assistance to small businesses looking to compete in the government marketplace. So whether you are new to the government marketplace and you're wondering, could this be a good fit for my business, to you've been in the marketplace for a while, but you're looking to kind of take that next level and see, maybe there's something I'm missing. We're here to help with that, and we do that through group trainings. We do that through conferences like today, but we also do it through one-on-one counselings, where we'll sit down with you and discuss what your needs are, come up with a plan, and things like that. So I'm a small business advisor with the organization. So I help plan a number of our events, but also assist in particular with the buyer meetings or matchmaking sessions.
And I'll mention too, Jack has helped coordinate the last couple buyer meetings and exhibit floors for the marketplace. So done a great job, and given what last year was, how many individual meetings, 800 something. I mean, it was pretty significant, 700-800. And what we did was we worked with these businesses to prepare so that they maximize that time where they have, I know Susan and Jose, I think you were both there. I know Suzanne was. And that's why in part they're participating in today's session, because it's such a unique opportunity to have a floor of 40 plus agencies and buyers that a small business can sit down with and pitch to. So great job, Jack. Thank you for doing that. Let's move. So Suzanne, we'll start with you. When you sit down with someone, as you do with a marketplace or anything else in the work that you do, what do you expect from someone what do you expect when someone sits down with you? What do you want to hear? What's your expectation?
I guess the first thing is know your audience and do a little research. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit more, but having a deeper conversation about one topic is more meaningful than trying to scatter lots of different expertise across lots of different areas, because it doesn't make as much impact. So understand the person that you're talking to and try to get an idea for what messages are going to resonate with them. And sometimes not in the small business kind of form, because it is very fast. But if you're setting up a sales call, ask the person, like, what do they want to hear about? Because that may give you better insight out of the gate rather than guessing when you get there.
Good advice. Jose, what would you say?
You know, a lot of it is, yeah, know who you're talking to, do your research. But also, I guess in the situation where it's a large conference and there's maybe organizations that you're not familiar with it, take a chance. The best thing though is know who you are and what you do, and ask the right questions as to what is it you do, and this is what I do. Can you see me fitting in your company, and how, and at what level? So, take that initiative. Obviously introduce yourselves and let us know, because it's a supplier development, supplier diversity conference. We want to know what your certifications are as well in those situations. So, again, know who we are. If you have time to do the homework, know how you fit in. But again, if you're not familiar with us, at least know real well what you do and how you do it.
Well, and I would encourage businesses to do their homework before you meet with someone like from MMSD or from HGA. It will impress them more if you do. And with today's technology, honestly, there's no reason not to, right? It's, as old timers, 15 years ago, I would have said something differently, but now everything can be looked up relatively quick, at least for a general, so if they go to MMAC, they don't say like, oh, so you're looking for the Madison School District or so. I mean, we've seen all sorts of odd stuff. For HGA, they don't think you're a manufacturer. They should know at least some of the basics. Jack, you've been working, like I mentioned, like with Marketplace, and you've got one coming up, a virtual buyer meeting session. What would you advise companies, and how should they prepare for these meetings?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before I jump into that, just to take a few moments, some of the businesses here I think are going to be familiar with buyer meetings, but if you're brand new to this idea, if your typical clientele comes to you because of word of mouth, and you're looking to step beyond that, and you're looking for a more active way to develop your business, buyer meetings are part of that. So a buyer meeting like Marketplace or a portion of the Marketplace program is where you have somebody from the procurement team or the buying team from an organization who will meet with you to learn more about your business. And it's a way for you to get to know each other. It's a way for you to know what they're looking for in some cases, and for you to tell them, as Jose said, who you are to determine if you're a potential good fit. So in preparing for those meetings, the first is going to be, finding the events with those meetings in them. So Marketplace last year had over 50 different buyers. So that's a really great opportunity for you to meet with government buyers from state and local, but also federal agencies, but also private corporations who are looking for small business suppliers. The second thing is know who's attending. So not just the events, but who's actually going to be attending year over year. So Marketplace is an annual event. For these events, Marketplace is one of the larger ones, but one that WPI is hosting on the 21st is smaller, and there are other organizations that host buyer meetings, and they might be smaller as well. That one will have, currently we've got 3 buyers signed up. But find out who's coming. That's many times listed on the website. Many times there are also going to be buyer profiles that'll tell you who's coming, so it'll give you a little bit more detail and not just the company name that's attending. So that would be the first thing I'd say. The second thing is that after you've identified those companies and you're going to proactively engage with them, there are a few things you're going to want to make sure that you come to those meetings with. The first is going to be a capabilities statement. Capabilities statement is like a resume for your business, so it's very concise. It's 1 page, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later if we have time. The second thing is going to be a targeted business card. So if your idea of a business card is that it just has your company name and address and maybe your phone number and email on it, a targeted business card is going to have a little bit more information that will help the buyer know a little bit more about you at that first glance. The third thing is going to be develop your pitch. If you're used to people coming into your store, or that sort of, if you have a storefront, for example, developing your pitch can take some practice. So I'd make sure to work on that ahead of time. I would also prepare though for a follow-up, both that you should plan to follow up with the buyers you meet with a few days after the conference. And I would also plan on them finding you. So for example, I'd make sure that your website is up to date. I'd make sure if you have a LinkedIn, that your LinkedIn is up to date. Your Google business profile, and if you don't know what these things are, how to update them, please contact us and we're happy to help. You're going to want to make sure you have a professional email address. So not a Gmail. You're going to want to make sure that it's, for example, I'm jackl@wispro.org, not Gmail. So you want to make sure you have a professional email address. It just helps make your first impression that much more credible. You're also going to want to make sure you have a professional email signature. So email signature should include things like your phone number, your title. It shouldn't just be your name at the end of it, ideally. And then lastly, you'll want to make sure to update your dynamic small business search profile for those of you who have a SAM.gov registration. That way, if somebody wants to look you up there, they'll find that you have up-to-date information. Updating all these things just helps you present better to a buyer, and it shows that you're actively engaged in the space and you didn't just sort of find these buyers by accident. And then I would say the last thing is market research. Make sure you do your market research on the buyers you're going to meet with before you meet with them.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, great advice. One thing I'd like to say too is just a pet peeve of mine. Lately, people have been following the advice and setting up business email addresses, but they're like this long. And Jose, I just saw your face go. Try to tighten those things up somehow. Okay, nobody wants these big long things that get mistyped and then they come back and all this other stuff. I very much support the business card, and I'll add to one of my pet peeves too is glossy, dark colored business cards. Right? When I get a business card from someone, I want to take a note on it because I'll forget by the time I get home what I told you. This way, I just write it on the business card and I've got it. So again, pet peeve of glossy and dark. And I really encourage in this technology abundant world, as Jack said, LinkedIn and a website, even if it's a minimal website, because you want to show that you exist, that you're professional, that you've got some background, that you're solid. You want to give a very positive impression. So great advice. Put that email address, that's one of my pet peeves. Just shorten that down to initial or something. Suzanne, to go to you, let's talk about Jack. The last thing he mentioned was market research. How can people find out more about what you do, what you expect, what projects you might have coming up? What do you guys do to open that space up to businesses, small businesses?
We have a website, obviously, that talks about projects that we're working on to give our audience a flavor of expertise areas that we're engaged in. I would highly encourage people to start utilizing some of these AI tools that are out there as well. I just, before this call, ChatGPT'd myself to see what it came up with. And it has stuff that's not even posted on the website yet of some of the service offerings that we're working
That's
on.
kind of scary.
It is a little bit scary, but I think it's drawing from more resources. I found it's also a way you can ask ChatGPT questions like how many RFPs have been issued by libraries in Wisconsin, and it will give you an answer. Validate it, but I know we are all very busy people, so leveraging some AI tools to just help cut some of that research duration out of our day is a huge time saver. The other piece I think in market research is leverage your network. Small business owners become small business owners because you're entrepreneurs and you've developed a network. So a lot of times I think if you're trying to broach a new business, see who they're connected to on LinkedIn. Do you know someone that they're connected to? A soft introduction is a lot easier to move forward than a hard cold call.
Very good advice. And I did not expect you to say the AI piece. And I have to admit that I have been using it on an accelerated curve over the last couple months. And I'm surprised myself at how dependent I am getting on that to help look things up or craft messages. And I think it's a tool. I believe that AI was talked about either Tuesday or Wednesday on one of these conversations. And I think there's more we need to do on that. And I do, you know, we saw each other a couple days ago at an event, and I think it's very important too that something that HGA does very well is business socializing, right? To connect with people. And it's maybe not to just connect with you or HGA, but the whole concept of, can you talk a little bit about that? I know you guys are really good at it.
About networking, just in general?
Yeah, the networking concept, yes.
I think it's very important just to get out there and put yourself out there. Most of your business will be with relationships with individuals, and that impact is stronger when it's done in person. So carve a time out of your week. Sometimes it's hard to do out of a day, and make sure that you're prioritizing some engagement with growing your network. And whatever specialty, I think Jose talked about this earlier, is know what your value proposition is and figure out what networking groups align with that and start to build a network in that space. And don't be afraid to talk to people. The worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to talk to somebody else, but at least you're getting out there, you're starting to kind of exercise that muscle. Sometimes when you first start out, it may feel a little bit challenging, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So I encourage you to not give up. And then just something we tell our salespeople is luck in motion. Things happen once you get out there and you have a conversation. You don't know where it's going to lead, but it can lead to a connection that's going to get you to the right person. But you can't get that started unless you put yourself out there.
And that ties back to have a business card when you do go out, so you can exchange that, as well as some prepared conversation in your head, you know, of the pitch, so to speak, but not necessarily deliver that pitch when you meet someone the first time, right? But have some concept. There was a question that came through on digital cards. I know I've had some people not have a card but want my phone, and okay, I'm old school still, so you know it's a little complicated for me. What do you think on that, Suzanne?
There's a value in the paper card. Myself, because we are really promoting, we just became a carbon neutral organization, and I'm representing engineering and sustainability, so I don't always bring business cards, but you have a QR code on your LinkedIn. Everybody does. If you have a LinkedIn account, you have a QR code and you connect to people that way. But if it's a really important buyer, it is good to have paper cards because you want that card in front of them to remind them that they met you.
That's a good point. Very good point. Thank you. Jose, market research, and can you speak to that for a little bit?
Sure. So I'll talk particularly just about the MMSD, but a lot of information is available today on our website and websites in general. And yeah, a lot of AI tools are available as well. But you definitely need to spend a good amount of time on a potential website. Our website, you can find so much information there. The areas that you should always visit are about us, every company, who they are, what they're about, where they started from. You find out what is their mission statement, what is their strategic plan. If you can find it, their budget. Do they have a budget? Where is it? We have the district, all the information is available. You go to our website, mmsd.com, make sure it's Milwaukee Metropolitan, it's not Madison Metropolitan. And you can find all that information on our homepage. Then also the biggest thing that firms need to do is, especially a lot of the larger entities or governmental entities, if there's an opportunity to register as a vendor, do that. A lot of us, because we have our headquarters is over 200 people. Then we have our surrounding facilities, Jones Island, South Shore, and we have multiple buyers and things of that nature. We in the procurement department, we are the, we're internal and external customer serving. So if someone's looking for a supplier in lab equipment or looking for, concrete structures, we go straight to our website first and to our vendor management system and look for that information there. Align those lines as well. Not only know your work, but have materials that you can share readily. E-brochure. I am also a little bit more old school. I like the old business cards as well, just because it helps me remember who you are. We have so many conversations regarding scanning cards and QR codes. I do like those. The problem is not everybody that works for a utility or other places has a work phone. So you need to have both. If you ask them, I have both, which do you prefer? So that always comes in handy. But the biggest thing you can do, like I said, is do your homework. On our website, as I said before, you can look at our budget. Look at the forecast. We go 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out. You can look at our public meetings notices. It gives you an idea as what is it that we're going to go out for bid, what are we going out for design projects, things of that nature. On our website, you also find information about business services and business development. The district, we've been funding a program to provide business development and workforce development services for older than I care to admit. But these are services that are available to interested individuals. And then also, most importantly, in addition to doing your homework, by registering as a vendor and you providing the appropriate information, we do host many networking opportunities. And those networking opportunities are geared to connecting businesses with other businesses, but also with district staff, like myself and everybody else. Any event that's hosted by the MMSD will have multiple MMSD staff there, from our procurement department, from our engineering department, from our service provider, contract provider, which is right now Veolia Water. You always have multiple representatives there and multiple opportunities to meet somebody, to have that one-on-one connection, even if it's just a brief connection. And then go back to ask the right questions and also ask for a face-to-face meeting. And then be prepared. At the district, myself and Robert Williams, we're the supplier development specialists. Our charge is to help you know how to do business with us and connect you with resources. We are also part of all of us on this call and all the other panelists. A lot of us maintain regular contact with each other as well. When we can't find somebody, a lot of times we'll reach out to other organizations and say, hey, I'm looking for a company that can provide this type of widget in this type of area, this type of size. Do you know anybody? Share that information, get registered and, visit the website. I mean, everything that's there, you can look at history, you can do records requests of past bids, past RFPs. The information is there. If you don't know exactly what information to ask for, reach out to us directly. We can point you in the right direction. Our method of operation here is we'll gladly open the door for you and invite you in. But we're also not going to drag you in. You need to take that initial step. Once you're in the door, then we'll welcome you with open arms. We'll do our best to keep you here.
Jose, can I ask a couple follow-up questions?
Please.
MMSD certification, you accept other organizations' certifications, correct?
Correct. We'll accept other third-party certifications. We do not accept self-certifications. So
Okay.
if you're MBE certified, WB certified, veteran certified, if you're DBE certified, we'll recognize those as well. We do offer a small business certification. It's based on SBA side standards and guidelines, things of that nature. But to be considered that way, you still need to submit an application. We don't charge for that application. Any firm that registers with us as well, if while they register, they have the opportunity to provide us copies of those certifications. We maintain a supplier diversity procurement list. It's public facing. A lot of our typical contractors and larger vendors will many times search that website for potential partners as well. As I mentioned before, through our vendor management system internally, we always start there and see who do we have that's registered with us that has these specifications, and then we share that information. And then after that, we don't find them, then we go to the state list, federal list, things of that nature. But because we don't maintain those lists, people drop on and off. We can't always, and then be honest, with the current state of flux, we don't know who's going to be up and running as well. It's always better to go to the source, and if you can provide that information and have it available at our fingertips, that's always greatly appreciated. But again, we recognize all certifications, provided that they're
including SBA, correct? SBA
correct.
certifications.
Well,
okay.
SBA certification, as long as there's some type of tangible proof that you can find,
right?
You can provide either a screenshot from the website along those lines, or basically that. But you can't just say.
Question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Not self-certified, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The question came in: do you have to be certified to register in your database?
No, you do not have.
But that would be one of the questions probably asked as you register. What certifications do you have?
Correct. Anyone to go into, anybody can register in a database. Period. Just need to have your tax ID. You have to be a legal corporation. You need to provide NAICS codes. Some people use NAICS, some people use NIGP. We use NAICS codes. I will say the more NAICS codes you provide, the better, especially if you're a niche corporation, niche company, because sometimes that needle in the haystack is the only one, and it's the one we need. So do your homework about that as well. But yeah, anybody can register. Along those lines, though, when you register, make sure that you update that registration. Go in and look at it and update it on a regular basis. Our registration is good for 4 years. Then you have to re-register. You will receive a notice when it's about to expire. We send a notice at 60 days, and then at 10 days we send a notice that your registration is going to expire. Then you drop off. But a lot of firms will come back to us. Hey, I haven't been receiving any notifications. Like, we see that your registration expired. It was going to this individual. Oh, that person left many years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good advice. Very good advice. Suzanne, when you sit down with somebody, what do you want to hear from them? What are like the top 2 or 3 things that connect with you as far as this? There may be something here in this potential supplier.
I think for us, because our job is really pulling teams together that can best serve our end user client, it's what are you bringing to the partnership, and how do you see this partnership moving forward with a firm like HGA? Discussion of how you operate so that there's cultural alignment. I think in the best partnerships we have with our subcontractors, we share a similar vision in how we're communicating and have similar, I would say, work culture. And then we know if things move very fast in this industry, so that when we run into like a difficult issue, we can overcome that issue because there is a shared culture, a shared trust to execute the best possible project for the client.
So the ability to team and partner is difficult for many businesses, right? They want to do things themselves. They want to do it their way. How do you, is that, so that's something you discuss early on in the conversation, I'm assuming. How does that manifest in a conversation? I mean, the person doesn't sit down and say, I want to team with you, or is that you feel it, or how do you?
I think it's shared targets. So if someone comes to us and says, we want to work with the Veterans Administration, I'm going to use that example because it's a little bit more narrow. We're a service disabled veteran. We think we can work with the Veterans Administration because they have a Veterans First initiative. That's kind of baseline. Okay, if you're qualified as a service disabled veteran, that's good. But how do you see your firm working with a firm like us? Is there a specific specialty that you bring that can connect to work for the Veterans Department? Do you have relationships that can help us work together to look at a potential new client within the Veterans Administration? There needs to be some value that's going to move it forward. Do we have the same client where combining forces will make a stronger sell for them because they can see the value of us coming together? Those are some ideas. It can't just be, though, that I have the certification. That's not enough. Everybody has a certification. You have to go a little bit deeper and kind of to what we talked about earlier. Know who you're talking to and what it is that they're buying, the kind of projects that they're doing, and how you can fit as a puzzle piece into that solution.
Let me ask you this. I kind of broke out the questions, and for full disclosure, all the questions that, topics we're discussing were made available to the panelists. What turns you off during a discussion, or what do you see as it kind of blocks any future conversation? I'll be blunt, any future conversation potentially. What elements would do that?
I think lack of research is a turnoff for me. I've talked to people before at some buyer meetings, and they're like, who is HGA? What is it that you do? I'm like, well, I know you kind of at least come to the table with a little bit of research. As I said, it's with the tools today, very easy to at least get to that point. And then relying too heavily on the fact that you have certifications with a bunch of different organizations. Everyone has to have certifications to be a small business partner in some teams. So that's just baseline. You need to kind of show what is your 1% better than the rest of the competition, and what value proposition are you bringing to the team that is something we value as a partner, but that also the client, our end user, will value as well.
Thank you. Jose, what impresses you when you meet with someone, or what makes you listen more?
Individuals that maybe understand it's a long game, number one.
Yeah.
And people that are willing to follow up. There's what's the, not annoyance, persistence, but being persistent. Those things impress me. People that are open and are able to understand the big picture of things. Yes, people are there to do business and they want to succeed, but it's not going to always happen right away, especially when you're dealing with utilities and government, things of that nature. Unfortunately, in many cases, we are a little bit bogged down by the process we have to follow for legal reasons and, state procurement and federal procurement, things of that nature. So again, be persistent, and again, be concise. Say what you got to say. Smile. I mean, we're human as well, and good vibes give good vibes. Negative vibes give negative vibes. I mean, it's okay to say I'm nervous, or I don't know that. That's fine. That's what impresses me. What doesn't impress me is organizations that will disparage their competitors. Organizations that are certified that disparage certification. I mean, then why are you certified? Why are you here talking to me? That is an extreme pet peeve for myself and a lot of the people that we deal with. In that case, then nice talking to you. But
So what I'm hearing is positive people, right? That understand what you do, at least at some level, and that know what they do, right? So they know how they could, maybe they don't know quite how to fit in, but they know what they can do so that it's not you explaining to them from ground up. They've done the first few steps themselves. I know we went out with a survey, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago to a bunch of large corporations and said, what do you look for the most in suppliers? And this was manufacturers, construction, technology, Midwest large corporations that have small business subcontracting plans. They said their biggest problem was when they sat down with the business and the business had no clue who they were talking to. And I know when we do marketplace, we ask all the buyers to fill out a survey. Those surveys, what they want, what certifications they're looking for, what specific skills they're looking for. All those get posted on the website. All those, Jack, I think get posted on site as well at the event that says this is what we're looking for. And that still is an issue that when people sit down, they're not prepared, and preparation is so important. I know we've talked about the capability statement. Jack, you help a lot of businesses with those, preparing capability statements. What's the biggest challenge you see businesses having with those, and maybe a little advice on how to make sure that it's done well? You're on mute, Jack.
Thank you. I think depending on the business, it differs per business and where you are, but in general, I would say, especially if this is your first time looking at a capability statement, that conceptualization stage can be really difficult. A lot of businesses like to talk about what they do as a sort of list of services. So they might say things like, I serve, UW Milwaukee Area Technical College, Alverno College, Concordia University. And for things like a capability statement, you're going to want to be more concise than that. You might say something more like, I provide janitorial services to metropolitan Milwaukee area institutions of higher education. Past clients have included, UW Milwaukee or Alverno College. So I think really thinking about your business in a thoughtful and concise way is, if you've never done that before, that can be the initial challenge, I think. The second challenge is honestly graphic design. Graphic design, if you don't have a background,
your face cringed a little bit when you said that.
Well, I feel bad because graphic design is one of those things where it's not easy to do, and a lot of times too, businesses, they have external people that do it, so they're like, gosh, how do I get this? How do I know what looks good? Graphic design is one of those things where you're kind of in a lot of cases in somebody else's hands. So that can be another challenge too. I think for both of those challenges, I work through that conceptualization stage a lot with clients. I'm happy to sit down and talk with clients and figure out how exactly should we talk about your business, so that you do present thoughtfully and concisely. For the graphic design work, I do review capability statements. So if you do your own graphic design, there are platforms like Canva that make that really easy. There are some AI tools out there that are, they work as maybe a good starting point. There's still fine tuning those yet. So some businesses have a lot of success with like Claude AI. If you want more information about marketing, things like that, yesterday we had, the topic was AI. There were a couple sessions that may be really helpful. So businesses that are on today, recordings I know will be available at some point in the future on the website. I would encourage you to go back and listen to those. If you don't do your own graphic design and you have an external department, that is fine too. I'm more than happy to help sort of package the material you need so that when you send it to the graphic designer, they have everything that they need in a way that will help them know where to start. I also have lots of examples of capability statements too that can be helpful. But yeah, those would be the two primary challenges, I think, is that sort of how to talk about my business and then the graphic design element.
I see part of the benefit of a capability statement, not just to have a one-page product summary, but sometimes when I've sat down too, a business has never really thought down on bringing all the stuff that they do down into something very simple, right? They, as you said at first, you know, the way they pull things together, it really is a great learning tool on how to really look at what you do and share that with someone else in a simplistic, organized and concise manner with the right message. And that's a lot harder than people think if they've never done it. Okay, marketing is important, right? Jack, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, especially, I mean, a lot of people, if you've been in your business for years, you're very familiar with the way it runs on a sort of daily operations, but to take that step back, if you've never done that before, it is a challenge. Advice I received early on was if you can't write it down, even if you think clearly, if you can't write it down, you probably don't think as clearly as you think in your presentation, therefore. So before we even help with things like pitch, I start with the capability statement, because once you have the capability statement done, your pitch is gonna be so much easier. It really will.
Suzanne, Jose, any comments to that?
Any marketing materials that you invest in, make sure you get an editable, a version that you can edit. I can't say editable though, because then you can then take that marketing piece and customize it as well to the particular client as well. Like MMSD, because we are a public institution that has taxing authority. If you have any state contracts, we want to know about that because there might be some opportunities because, you know, we could piggyback off those contracts as well. So something to think about as well. But I guess that's the biggest thing. And as Jack said, though, that capability statement, as concise as it can be, but on point is important. And know it like the back of your hand, but revisit it. Just because you have that capability statement doesn't mean that your company hasn't changed or evolved. So that should evolve as well.
Thank you, Suzanne.
I would just add, I think it's good to start with your differentiator and value proposition as the big idea. And then you can fill in the capabilities that support that big idea. I think to Jack's point, if you've been doing your business for a long time, you're in the weeds and you have to maybe step back and get that 30,000-foot view of what is it that I do and what do I bring? And then you can start to structure it in a way that makes sure that you're focused on that value proposition, because as you're selling to folks like Jose and I, that's what we want to see. That's maybe the one thing we read first is like, does this align with a potential partnership or does it not? And it's got to be big and clear. And don't forget your contact information. I've seen that happen too.
And I would suggest also street address, not a PO box, phone numbers and email addresses with an individual's name. This is business. This isn't, you know, personal. I very strong. Marketing is so important. And I think we, businesses sometimes, when looking at budget, don't think marketing should have a dollar amount next to it or make that very significant. It makes all the difference to the way I see it. All right. It doesn't mean you have to buy huge advertising things, but you do need to be aware. You do need everything we talked about so far. The cost is printing at most. Looking for opportunities to do exhibiting, again, targeted. Everything should be targeted to where the benefit is. But in today's capabilities with marketing materials and business cards, the costs are minimal. It does not have to be 5 figures, 4, you know, it can be done very prudently. Websites are very important because, as both of you said, and Jack as well, and myself as well, when I meet somebody, I look them up. I look at their website, I look at their LinkedIn, I looked at to see if they're registered in something like sam.gov or certified with the state, or, you know, the databases that are out there. I want to know who I just talked to see, to continue the conversation on a go or no go. So I find that very important. So as there was a question on, Jack, I'm going to put it to you. Can you define better what a buyer is? a little bit. So using marketplace maybe as an example, who could be a buyer at marketplace?
Yeah, so buyers, it's going to depend on the organization exactly what the buyer is, but generally speaking, the buyer, you should think of them as sort of like the gatekeeper to the organization, right? So they're going to make that admission, again, depending on the organization. They're not necessarily going to be like the person making the decision, but they more likely are going to be that person making that initial evaluation to see if your company meets some of the basic criteria, and then they'll put you in contact with the team that would actually flesh out the details on specific projects. So each company is a little different. I mean, there are some companies I've run into where if you sit down with a buyer and you don't have a capability statement, that's one of the minimum threshold things you just have to have. And if you don't, then, you know, that's kind of the end of that conversation. You know, and I mean, you know, they'll meet with a lot of buyers or suppliers in a given day. So making sure you have that relevant information for them and not making them work for it is really important. So buyers might be, like I mentioned earlier, from procurement teams, people like Jose, people like Suzanne, but they might also come from, you know, government agencies as well. So for example, the Milwaukee County might have a buyer at an event. Milwaukee County Parks might have a buyer. So right, if you're into janitorial services, Milwaukee County Parks has pavilions, things like that. So like they'd be the person that you can talk to about that. So hopefully that answers that question.
And it could be corporate, it can be corporations, it can be smaller businesses. It could be someone that's coordinating a project. It could be, like you said, federal, state, county. It's not always the person that's writing the contract. It's not always the person that's running the project. It's not always the person that can make a decision and sign something. And you use the word gatekeeper. That's common. That's not uncommon in situations where you do have buyer meetings that a lot of corporations have a small business liaison officer, agencies have small business representatives. That is the gatekeeper, and you do want to impress them because their job is to move that capability back into their organization then and start, you know, if you're a fit, looking for opportunities. So any comments? I mean, that's, and thank you, Suzanne and Jose, for coming like to Marketplace and meeting with businesses and giving them the opportunity to move forward with your organizations. To close, I would ask you each to make some, you know, a few comments in closing on marketing, buyer meetings, integrating with smaller businesses, certifications, all that space. And Jose, we'll start with you.
Sure. I guess first and foremost, follow up is key. If you meet with somebody and you're going to follow up with them, and if you don't get a response, keep following up. I'll full honesty, I mean, at being in the procurement department and supplier development, I meet with a lot of organizations every year, and don't take it personal, but I'm not going to remember everybody. But I do appreciate you following up with me. And I mentioned it earlier, if you have an e-brochure, even better, because in my role, I work with everybody within the organization, and myself and Rob, and we take that information, we'll then share with who we feel is appropriate and ask them, hey, what do you find of interest? And then we can set up a meeting. There's interest as well. Another thing to consider though, because a lot of the work that we do requires a large contractor, a large consultant, and sub-consultant, subcontractors. Ask us who typically does business with us. And we'd be happy to share that information because a lot of those partners are also looking for buyers and then come work for us. And they're always looking for potential partners that they may not be aware of or never thought of. So I mentioned before, look at our website. WPI does great work, does great support. The other organizations out there as well that does that. We offer a lot of services as well. We tailor those to working for us as well. But if those resources are out there and they have no cost, just because they have no cost doesn't mean they're not of value. If anything, it at least connects you with somebody with that organization that you can continue to follow up with and develop a relationship with. I can keep going, but go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne.
Those are all great points. I was going to mention, yeah, channels to market. It's not just us as the buyers, but there are many different ways to get, if you have a target client, think about all of the different aspects to break in. And sometimes it is not directly for the client, it's through a partner that's working for that client or a subcontractor to that partner. So explore all different avenues when you're thinking about how to grow business with a specific organization. The other thing I wanted to mention is be authentic, be yourself. This is something I think sometimes people get a little bit nervous, but when we're forming a new relationship, we want to know who you are because that's going to help create a better foundation moving forward. So always be authentic. The other thing I like to suggest is you're also, I like to put my networking hat on. So sometimes it's not like one-to-one connection between you as the seller and the buyer at the table, but once you know a little bit more about what I'm interested in, maybe you know someone else. And if you can help branch my network, that's another way of adding value to the conversation. So I'm going to think about the same, how maybe it's not myself that's going to provide a good fit for your organization, but I'm always thinking about who else would be good for you to connect with, because we're all in this to grow business in the state of Wisconsin and beyond. So how can we help each other out? And we have individual networks that are very powerful. So sometimes it's just that one step removed that we need to make that direct connection to.
Good advice. Thank you, Suzanne. Jack, your last comments?
Yeah, so my last comments, I have so many more notes based on the questions Ina gave us. So I would love to meet with you all, first of all. Like if some of you want to continue this conversation with WPI, I'd be more than happy. Or somebody else on our team here would be more than happy to talk to you about this. I think the one thing that we didn't mention on the local and state government side, I think something to keep in mind as context for when you're doing buyer meetings is, Jose mentioned the opportunities that are publicized. There are opportunities that are not necessarily publicized. Right, if they're below a certain posting dollar threshold, you're not necessarily going to find those on, say, sam.gov for the federal government, right? Being able to introduce yourself to a contracting officer and make that connection and learn about those potential opportunities is another really important value of buyer meetings. So that would be, it's just something else to keep in mind, I think, as you're approaching buyer meetings. So in that sense, it's really important to know like what the agencies are generally looking to purchase or what they need to support their missions, but don't just only rely on the things that you can find publicized. And we can talk about too where you find those opportunities on the state, local, and municipal side in a private meeting. The last thing I would say too is just positivity. I think is really important. Jose mentioned earlier not talking negatively about your competition. I think also not talking negatively about some of the circumstances that are affecting, especially like federal contracting right now, is important. Tariffs are outside of the control of the person that you're meeting with as a buyer. So that isn't necessarily a productive topic of conversation when you're meeting with buyers. So keeping it really positive and positive about your business, I think is really important. Those things that you can control and that the buyer wants from you. So yeah, those would be my two final pieces of advice. But like I said, if you feel like this conversation opened a box where you're like, gosh, it seems like there's a lot more in there yet, we're happy at WPI to meet with you to talk about that.
Jack, when is the session? May 21st, the virtual buyer meetings?
Yes, so the virtual buyer meetings will be held on May 21st. Currently, Milwaukee County, Racine Unified School District, and Veolia are attending that one. So if you go to our website,
it has a separate registration. Reach out to our office, and we can provide you that link. I thank you all for joining us very, very much today, Suzanne, Jose, and Jack, taking your time. There's so much opportunity out there for small businesses. My last word is don't be grumpy when you meet somebody. It really turns them off. And do your homework. It's not acceptable in today's the world we live in. As Suzanne said, AI. Jose, you mentioned AI, which I was not expecting to be part of this conversation, but it is so important. You can find so much out. You do have to, make sure that you double check what you're seeing. but use the tools that you have available and take the opportunities that you have to get out and network and meet with the people and develop relationships. It's critical, even if it's outside your normal comfort zone. You can't grow a business staying within your comfort zone. So take those steps outside, and you'll be surprised at how warm and how helpful people can be, and how much they really do want to help each other and build those networks that we have to get business done. So I thank you, everybody. We're going to be starting on the hour with our next session with some successful business owners from around the state. So please stay with us. I want to thank the panel.
Thank you,
And I'm
Ina.
going to go dark now.
Thank you for the opportunity, everybody. Hope to see you
Bye.
soon.
Take care.
Thank you.